The fear you're running from is the power you've been looking for. Welcome to the Soft Girl Era podcast, where we empower and inspire Black professionals, business leaders, and entrepreneurs to rise above every trial with grace and grit. I'm your host, Leanne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. And today we're diving deep into a conversation that's raw, real, and revolutionary. My guest is the phenomenal Yaminah White, a Black woman who's turned her deepest fears into her greatest strength. Yaminah is out here doing something that most of us are too scared to even attempt. She's taking the thing we've been taught to hide, to suppress, to medicate, to pray away, and she's holding it up to the light and saying, "This right here, this fear, this is my superpower." Yaminah is teaching us that our deepest wounds, our most terrifying moments, our survival instincts passed down from mothers who knew how to eat by any means necessary, these aren't scars to hide. They're badges of honor. They're the raw material of our unbreakable power. And after our conversation, I knew I had to share what she taught me with all of you, because this message, it's the sacred pause we've all been waiting for. Yamina said something that hit me like a thunderclap. Fear is my story. Fear is my strength. 6 words that flipped everything I thought I knew about courage, about resilience, about what it means to be a Black woman navigating this world. Because here's the truth we don't say out loud enough. We've been taught to hide our fear, to bury it under layers of "I'm fine" and "I got this" and that exhausting superwoman cape we've been wearing since we were old enough to understand what survival meant. But Yamina, she's her mother's daughter, and her mama taught her how to eat by any means necessary. That fierce, unapologetic survival instinct that runs through the bloodline of Black women who refuse to starve, refuse to disappear, refuse to let their babies go hungry, physically or spiritually. That's the legacy, that's the inheritance. And Yamina is flipping the script, showing us that the fear we carry isn't a weakness, it's the strength we've been looking for all along. Let me break down what Yamina shared, because there are 3 truths here that every single one of us needs tattooed on our hearts. First, fear isn't just a roadblock, it's the raw material for your unbreakable power. It's the thing that makes you move when comfort would let you stay stuck. It's the alarm clock that wakes you up when complacency is trying to tuck you in. Fear is the voice that says something's not right here. And if you listen, really listen, it'll guide you toward what is. Second, embracing your fear story head on, owning it, naming it, transforms pain into purpose, especially when you've endured the kind of pain that comes from believing in love that wasn't real, from giving your whole heart to people and systems that didn't deserve it. That pain, that betrayal, that moment when you realized you were pouring into a cracked vessel, that's not wasted, that's data, that's wisdom. That's the beginning of your most powerful chapter. And third, like Yamina's mama taught, you got to eat by any means. Channel that fear into relentless action that feeds your legacy, that nourishes your future, that builds something so solid your grandchildren will stand on it. Not hustle for hustle's sake, not grinding yourself into dust, but strategic, intentional, fear fueled action that says, "I see the obstacle and I'm going through it anyway." Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking that sounds beautiful, Leanne, but how? How do I turn my fear into strength when I'm barely holding it together? And that's exactly why I want to share 3 powerful stories of Black women who lived this truth before Yamina ever said it out loud. 3 women who turned fear into empires, who ate by any means, who proved that survival isn't just about making it through, it's about making it count. Let's start with Sarah Breedlove. You might know her better as Madam C.J. Walker. Born in 1867 Louisiana, orphaned by age 7, married at 14 to escape abuse, widowed at 20 with a daughter to raise and no safety net. She battled a painful scalp disease that caused her hair to fall out clumps at a time. And if you've ever experienced hair loss, you know it's not just physical, it's identity, it's dignity, it's the mirror reminding you daily that something is wrong. Sarah faced poverty that would have crushed most people. She lived in the Jim Crow South where the system was designed to keep Black women invisible, powerless, and poor. But Sarah looked fear dead in the face and said, "Not today." She started experimenting with hair formulas in her kitchen, mixing hope with desperation, sulfur with prayer, determination with the kind of grit that only comes from having no other option. And then she did something audacious. She started selling door to door, knocking on doors in Black neighborhoods, networking with Black churches and clubs, building trust one sister at a time. She didn't have venture capital. She didn't have a business degree. She had fear and she had fire, and she turned both into fuel. By 1919, she'd built $1 million empire, employing thousands of Black women as sales agents, revolutionizing Black hair care with her wonderful hair grower, training 40,000 agents, building factories that were as lavish as they were profitable. Fear of destitution became the fuel for her feast. She didn't just survive, she thrived. And she paved the way for every Black woman entrepreneur who came after her, funding scholarships, supporting the NAACP, proving that when you eat by any means, you feed generations. Sarah's story is proof that fear isn't the end, it's the spark. It's the thing that makes you say, "I refuse to stay here," and then gives you the energy to move. Then there's Ursula Burns, first Black woman CEO of a Fortune 500 company, Xerox. Raised by a single Panamanian mother in New York City tenements, Ursula grew up watching her mama hustle, cleaning offices, ironing shirts, doing whatever it took to keep the lights on and her kids in Catholic school. Ursula internalized that eat by any means mentality from childhood. She watched her mother refuse to be broken by poverty, and she carried that refusal into every boardroom she entered. Ursula faced imposter syndrome in corporate America. She walked into rooms where she was often the only Black face, the only woman, the only person who didn't grow up with a trust fund and a country club membership. She faced racial bias from colleagues who underestimated her, the fear of being overlooked, the fear of being the token, the fear that one mistake would confirm every stereotype they believed about her. But Ursula owned her fears publicly. She didn't pretend she had it all figured out. She mentored others while pushing Xerox into bold new strategies, transitioning the company from copiers to services, making acquisitions that others called risky. She grew Xerox revenue by 10% annually and retired as chairwoman in 2016, leaving a legacy that shattered glass ceilings and opened doors for countless Black professionals in STEM and executive suites. Her fear of exclusion, of failure, of scarcity became her rocket fuel. She turned childhood fears into corporate hunger and proved that fear strengthens leadership when you refuse to let it silence you. Ursula didn't wait for permission. She didn't wait to feel ready. She moved with her fear, not in spite of it. And let's talk about Melody Hobson, president of Ariel Investments, Starbucks board chair, a woman who turned fears of racial wealth gaps into billionaire level impact. Growing up on Chicago's South Side with six siblings and an absent father, Melody battled fears of financial invisibility, of being underestimated in the world of finance, where Black women were practically non existent. But her mama instilled that eat by any means survival instinct amid blended family chaos and poverty. Melody watched her mother juggle bills, stretch food, make miracles out of nothing, and she decided early that she would never let money or the lack of it control her life again. So Melody leaned into her fear. She co founded Ariel Investments at 25, aggressively pitched to investors who didn't look like her, championed Black economic power through transparent advocacy, and grew Ariel to over $20 billion in assets under management. She secured Oprah as a partner, advised presidents, built the Ariel Black Investor Survey, and dedicated herself to closing racial wealth gaps through education funds and policy. Fear forged her fearless empire. She didn't let financial invisibility define her. She redefined what Black women could achieve in finance, proving that fear, when channeled with purpose, becomes unstoppable. Melody's story is a masterclass in turning the thing that scares you into the thing that saves you. These three women, Sarah, Ursula, Melody, they show us exactly what Yaminah White is teaching. Fear isn't the end, it's the spark. It's the story that becomes your strength when you stop running from it and start running with it. But here's where it gets personal for those of us in our soft girl era, because we've spent decades in survival mode. We've led teams, raised families, held down households, carried communities on our backs. We've been the strong friend, the reliable sister, the one who never breaks, and now we're exhausted. We're ready to shift from constantly grinding to finally grounding in joy, in peace, in softness, in self prioritization. And that means we have to do something radical. We have to look at our fear, the fear of not being enough, the fear of disappointing people, the fear of what happens when we finally say no. And we have to embrace it, not as a weakness, as a strength. Yaminah's message is a spiritual, emotional, and mental recalibration. It's about healing from trauma, the deep wounds of abuse, grief, betrayal, chronic overextension. It's about dropping the superwoman cape and recognizing that softness is not weakness. It's a radical act of self love. It's about learning to say no without guilt, setting boundaries without apology, resting without explanation. It's about reclaiming your identity, not the version shaped by family expectations or church roles or boardroom rules, but the real you that's been waiting to bloom. In faith, faith is the foundation because many of us integrate our spirituality deeply into our transformation. We're not just talking about self help, we're talking about soul help. We're talking about trusting that the God who brought us through survival mode is the same God calling us into our soft girl era, where we unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom we deserve without guilt, without apology, without explanation. So here's what I need you to do. Not next week, not when you feel ready, right now. I want you to name your biggest fear out loud. Write it down. Don't pretty it up. Don't make it sound manageable. Write the raw, ugly, terrifying truth of it. The fear that wakes you up at 3 in the morning. The fear that makes you overwork, overextend, overfunction. The fear that keeps you saying yes when your body is screaming no. And then I want you to take one eat by any means action to flip it into strength. Pitch that idea you've been sitting on. Heal that old pain by finally going to therapy. Set that boundary you've been too scared to set. Say no to something that's draining you. Apply for that position. Start that business. Leave that relationship. Do one thing that scares you and watch how fear transforms into power. Because here's the truth that Yaminah White is teaching us, that Sarah and Ursula and Melody lived, that I'm standing here telling you today. The fear you're running from is the power you've been looking for. It's not your enemy, it's your invitation. It's not your weakness, it's your weapon. It's not your ending, it's your beginning. You are your mother's daughter. You come from a lineage of women who ate by any means necessary, who survived the unsurvivable, who turned nothing into something. You already have everything you need. The fear is just reminding you of how powerful you really are. This is your soft girl era call. Fear is your story. Strength is your signature. And you, my sister, are about to feast. Stop running from the fear. Run with it. Let it fuel you. Let it guide you. Let it transform you into the woman you were always meant to become. The world is waiting for the version of you that stops apologizing for taking up space. The version that says no without explanation. The version that rests without guilt. The version that knows her worth and refuses to negotiate it. That version is on the other side of your fear. So walk through it with your head high, your heart open, and your mama's voice in your ear reminding you, baby, you gotta eat. Now go, name your fear, flip it, and feast.